Welcome back to Strategy Simplified. We're in the middle of a series of discussions on the FIT interview. In these short episodes, we're going to be hearing the highlights of Management Consulted's top teaching notes on consulting behavioral interview prep. I hope you've joined us for our first two discussions, where we've already covered walk me through your resume and other predictable questions. Today we're going to be talking about hero stories. So stay tuned to hear more about what those are and how you can be prepared for those in your FIT interview. I hope you enjoy the discussion. So hero stories, what are these and how do I prepare them? Our approach at Management Consulted is not that you prepare 100 answers for the 100 most likely questions that you're going to get in the interview. There are so many different iterations of questions that your interviewer is going to go through. Tell me about a time when, ... And interviewers can get really creative with these questions, and they're going to ask you situational questions that follow up on prior answers that you had, customizing this discussion from person to person. It's truly impossible to be prepared and memorize a unique specific example for every question that they could possibly throw at you. Instead, our approach at Management Consulted is for you to have a set of stories in your back pocket that you can pull from and adapt to any question that you would get from an interviewer. It's important to recognize this different approach and to consider whether or not it's the right one for you. For most going through consulting recruiting, you're focusing on the case interview prep. And so it's too much for most candidates to do to prepare an additional 30, 40, 50 behavioral fit answers. Instead, we can think about the core elements of our background and our resume to establish a set of 15 or more hero stories that we adapt to every question. Just like most other parts of the FIT interview, all of these answers are told in 1 minute with enthusiasm, adapting our stories to the question, not vice versa. Our structure in each of these short stories is going to be the CAR method. This is just a condensed version of the STAR method. CAR is C for context, A for action, R for result. So for each story that I'm telling, briefly speaking to the context, especially things of note would be the project scope, the team size, your role, the problem that you were tasked with. And then speaking to the action that you took, specific steps to resolve the issue, to be able to meet the objective. And then the results. What was the outcome? How did you achieve a usually positive outcome, positive or neutral outcome? Now, as you start to build your list of hero stories, you should make sure to pull them from different parts of your life and background. One categorization that we can think of here is the 3 different portions of your resume: education, professional experience, and leadership. We should try to balance out our stories as much as possible across these 3 categories. Secondly, we want to go into each of these categories and balance them out further. In one interview session, I should not be telling more than 2 stories from the same experience on my resume. Of course, there's exceptions here. If you're very young in your career journey and you've only had 1 or 2 experiences professionally, then I expect that you're going to be speaking to a lot of the professional situational questions I'm going to ask you from that same moment in life, from that same opportunity. But if that's not where you're at, then we need to make sure that we are prepped and ready to speak to different parts of our background. I don't want to hear every single story that you tell about the 1 year that you spent at Goldman Sachs. That's great. It's a great brand name. It's a great thing to speak to and really highlight and fully flesh out from your resume. But if you have multiple other entries as well, I want to understand how those moments in your professional career path have had an impact as well. I want you to pull a diverse set of stories and moments in time to be able to speak to the questions that I have. I think a great place to start here is the bullet point level on your resume. Thinking about specific moments in time, we need to create a list of hero stories that we don't tell the same story over twice answering a question, so that we keep our answers diverse from question to question, and ultimately imparting on the interviewer the belief that we can succeed in any environment, including taking on the responsibilities associated with the role that we're applying into. You absolutely can speak about the same work experience multiple times, but hopefully we are giving ourselves some breadth over the duration of a full fit interview. Hopefully we're speaking about different points in time, even within that one experience, different initiatives you were part of, different project teams, different tasks that you were associated with.
We'll be right back after this quick message.
Feeling stuck in your prep process? Join Black Belt. Black Belt gives you expert help. You get 8 one-hour, one-to-one coaching sessions with an MBB coach. You get access to unlimited digital materials and homework that we will assign you in between sessions to help you quickly accelerate your progress. If you need to be interview ready quickly, join Black Belt today. Click the link in the show notes to learn more.
So the bullet point level on our resume really helps us start to get to that smaller example, not just at the level of a role that you spent multiple years in, but how would you break that down into smaller pieces, committees that you were part of, task forces, project management offices, initiatives, et cetera, et cetera. Even within those, there are likely positive, neutral, and negative things that happened. By truly sitting with your resume and trying to identify these specific moments in time or themes, trends, and putting those into kind of bullet point hero stories, it forces us to start to sit with our past a little bit, to remind ourselves of all the different things that we have been through, so that when I get that crazy, customized question from my interviewer, tell me about a time when you were faced with an ethical dilemma and you had to, you were challenged with whether or not you made the right decision. I mean, that's not necessarily a question that I expect you to be expressly prepared for. But as I scroll back through my memory, my kind of internal database, my repository of moments in time, my hero stories, perhaps I can think of a moment in one of those experiences from my past that makes sense. Recommend that you start to draft this list of hero stories. You, at first pass, come up with at least 15, and then you test your list. Then you can look up on, other websites, forums, etc., common questions that come up in interviews in general, common questions that come up in management strategy consulting, perhaps even common questions that come up for the specific firm or role that you're applying into. And then you test your hero story list against those questions. So if I got that question of, tell me about a time when you used data to solve a problem, you had conflict on a team, you had to influence without authority, your proudest accomplishment, when you had to get a group to align and agree, when you were faced with a tough ethical challenge, that you have stories that you think that you could adapt to those questions. Every story that you have in your repertoire is likely to be able to be adapted to multiple questions. And for this reason, you can start with a story list and adapt it to the questions rather than the other way around. Thanks for joining us today. Out Loud Prep is just as important for the FIT interview as it is for the broader case interview. Now, FIT interview can be a little bit easier to practice with friends and family members, even people outside of a consulting recruiting context. But if you really want informed feedback to help you iterate in your preparation, then you could work with one of our coaches. You can either work in FIT questions to broader case discussions, or you could have dedicated FIT interview coaching sessions in 30 or 60-minute slots. Check out the link in the show notes to learn more, and we'll see you next time.